Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It's day 4 of the LJL, and we know you want more. We're coming through with some more spicy games because day 3 definitely did deliver. And we're going to see if day 4 has exactly what we want in store. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce my 2 casters for the first 2 games of today. We've got Infinite Dodge and we've got Recollect. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine. My day's been brightened even more by your rhyming. That was quite the impressive little scheme right off the top of the dome there. How about you, Recollect? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Honestly, my favorite part about these streams isn't even the games. It's just looking at what the new background is going to be every single time. Look at the little Sakura on the background. So this is always nice. And on the subject of nice, let's look at the teams that we're going to be running down because it's looking like a spicy one here between the Hawks and Crest Gaming Act.
No, indeed
Yeah.
it is the Hawks versus CGA. Both teams have been inconsistent, I feel, is the word. I feel like the Hawks, to be fair, have actually been a little bit more consistent than CGA in general. They have just had a bit of a tougher schedule. But CGA, big question marks were raised last day. We'll see how they can cope. But let's talk about the Hawks a little bit for now. Obviously, this team has kind of been a dark horse a lot in the spring split, a lot in this summer split. But are you guys still considering themselves that, even though they've lost 2 games? Are you just saying that's maybe tough competition? Infinite Dodge, how are you feeling about the Hawks this time round?
Yeah, the Hawks, they really impressed me. I got to come in and cast their game against RJ, which was a surprising victory. Now, RJ hasn't necessarily looked as strong as we expected from them off the basis of last split's results, but it was still a really good sign for me that Hawks picked a composition identity around this poke style that we see a lot of teams fail to execute on, and they played to their win conditions super well. So I'm actually a little bit cautiously higher on the Hawks than the standings might indicate. I think this is going to be a really even matchup here between these teams, and will do a lot to tell us what we should expect about this scrum of tied up teams in that 3rd to 5th place position. I think it's going to be an absolute banger.
Yeah, I think the Hawks have had a tough schedule, as we said. Like, Rascal just has beaten them in day 1. In day 3, having to play against Sengoku, it's not the greatest, but they were able to overcome Burning Core, who some do believe as being also another questionable team, another one at the middle of the pack that we've kind of talked about with those likes of CJ, with the likes of the Hawks. So I'm interested to see how they do play out. Flipping onto CGA, amazing first day. Okay, they played against Burning Core, they absolutely rocked it. But then, since have been a little bit shaky. Yes, they had to play against Sengoku, which admittedly most people would rate as top team in the league right now. But recollect, their performance against V3, does it bring up big concerns about CGA?
I mean, absolutely. It's when you have the biggest CGA fan in the world in Mr. Middlecourt saying about how disappointed they are in the team, that's how you know that something's gone wrong. And it's not just a gameplay based issues, it's also what they were picking and what they were picking against. I think the last game they played highlighted a potential lack of flexibility and willingness to try new things, which is something that in the long term can actually really hinder your ability to pick up these wins when we go later on into the season, because you get spotted out really, really quickly and teams can adapt to that. So I feel like CGA is one of those teams that has the potential to be a top 4 team, but could potentially just get held back because of that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them start to get burned as we move forwards. And honestly, if you're going to need to pick up wins, now is the time if you're going to stay the way that you are. And this team is certainly one that you have a chance against.
No, indeed. It definitely feels like this is a really good test for both teams. I feel like this is kind of like the deciding matches, you know? Games against V3, Axis, as we kind of alluded to at the first day. Those games are kind of, you have to pick up the wins. You know, you need to start getting the ball rolling against the likes of the Rascal Jesters, of maybe last split. This split has been a little bit questionable, but the Sengokus, the DFMs, those are games that are going to be tough to win. But that middle of the pack, the Burning Core, the Hawks, the CJs, for those teams, against those teams, that's where the real bread and butter is. You know, that's where you really have to pick up those wins. That's where you really show where you belong in the standing. And that's really what's going to break apart the pack. But we do have a few comparisons from these 2 teams. And I don't know how much you guys like taking the cross analysis, but we're going to have a little look. Against Sengoku, they both have very similar game times. Again, they were holding off Sengoku for a little bit of time, but then they were picked up, and it does it does say that, you know what, Sengoku, maybe they just play to a certain time frame. But the big one is against Burning Core. So against Burning Core, CGA picked up a very impressive win. And it was 10 minutes faster than when the Hawks did it. So with that in mind, do you feel like the Hawks are maybe in a little bit of trouble, Dodge? Maybe they play a bit of a slower game, CGA could push them early?
I think if you look at the trends that the LJL as a whole has historically always followed, and the meta post durability patch, in general around the world, it's a slower game state around the LJL. Interestingly enough, CGA has sort of stood as like the lone detractor, the lone rebel voice to that style of play. So I think that speaks to why they picked up one of our faster wins over Burning Core. I mean, they've been going for these lane dominant top laners, the Olafs, the Lilia in the hands of Nap have been really spectacular. They've been playing Ahri through the mid lane, Kaisa with hard engaged supports. I mean, they are playing to be in your face and action packed. And when you have the reputation they have as a coin flip team, when you play that style of League of Legends and, the coin is weighted and it lands heads, that's going to be really good for you. You're going to snowball games and you're going to close them out quickly. I don't know if that necessarily speaks to a complete edge out in terms of if they get a little bit on the lower side of the coin, if it's going to be as clean, if it's going to be as quick. Recollect, what are you feeling on this? Do they have a definite edge with the faster play style, or are they going to get stifled a little bit by the Hawks?
So, in my opinion, it's a really interesting one because when we look at the playstyles of the two teams, I think that the mid and top lane are super important. I think that off the top of my head, Nap has been one of our best laners in the LJL in general, and I think it'd be hard to say that Hinatu, in at least early laning wise, is going to be able to match up consistently. However, I think that Dasher has been a standout performer and probably will end up playing very well into this matchup of Kaito, who off of the Zoe hasn't actually looked that great in my opinion. And I wouldn't honestly bet against the Hawks in this particular match because I imagine that given the way that their mid jungle has played over the course of the split so far, I think they could just transition that to the top lane and stifle Nap. So to me, I'm really looking at Kassin to not make those over-aggressive plays that we have seen in the past and have to potentially bail out Kaito a little bit depending on that mid lane matchup.
Oh, indeed. There is definitely a lot of potential with these ones. And I think that we talk about CJ being fast. Obviously, against Burning Core, the stats do hold up to that. Against V3, that was a pretty long game. So they're not exactly crushing every game at Fast and Furious, but they definitely have the potential. And obviously, a big talking point has been team fighting, I think, a lot in this league. I think the Rascal Jesters has really shown at DFM, at Sengoku. We've talked about all these big teams really holding down those team fights well. CGA, are we feeling confident about their team fighting? Because obviously after the V3, it was a bit shaky. Recollect, it felt like they kind of won that on basically one good team fight to end them all, and then they took it to Mordor. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like CJ can stand up to some big teams when it comes to team fighting?
I definitely think that they can stand up to other teams in team fighting. The issue with the V3 game is that they basically put themselves in a hole where their whole reliance was, don't worry guys, we can catch up to Ezreal and then we'll be fine. But it's like, how do you do that with the comp that they drafted against Swain? The only reason that they did end up winning that game is because the one time that they caught them was against a Baron pit. So there was nowhere for the backline to run to get away from Olaf, who could just kill everyone. So it's one of those where if they have the champions that let them play the game, I think that the players are actually very skilled. And I think at that point, they are able to win team fights. The problem is, I don't want to see their drafting. It scares me, and I don't like it. So we'll see what they get. And depending on what they get, they might just lose.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that they've moved away from the LoL bear, to be honest. Like when we talk about drafting, I feel like CGA, they used to pick up a lot of volley. They used to be very jungle proactive, and I don't know, they've kind of switched it up. Admittedly, I want to ask, Dodge, what do you think about this Olaf top?
I love Olaf top. I've been a fan of it for a long time. I think it's played very well in the hands of Nap.
Hold on one sec. I'm really sorry, Dodge. I did throw you that question at the end, but we are going to go into draft. Let us know what you know about the Olaf top, although it is going to be banned for this one. Infinite Dodge, recollect, take us into game one.
Thank you so much, Jay Real, as we do see these bands already flying through Fast and Furious style. Recollect, as Jay Real mentioned, we're not getting Olaf top this time around, and I can't blame them for that. Naps looked deadly on that pick.
Yeah, most picks so far for them, I believe 2 picks in the last 3, so definitely something they have been prioritizing. The other thing being that Lilia top, which has been such a meta pick for a while, though it has fallen out of favor as of late. Looking down the pool, you've got to remember though that Wukong as well as that Viego are both on the table. Same with this Ezreal that's been overly prioritized here in Japan.
Yeah, and we do see SoftBank Hawks Gaming taking a little bit of time on this first pick. We are still on patch 12.11, so no Belveth or anything spicy like that to shake things up. No Wukong nerfs like we just saw on 12.12b either, so this should... Yeah, there we go. Lock it in, baby. It's the Wukong first pick. Who could have seen it coming, Recollect?
Yeah, a little bit of monkey madness. We kind of saw it. You know, it has been a staple at this point. The interesting thing to me is whether or not we will end up seeing things like the Poppy counter that ran into it a little while ago. But likely we just get that Viego lock-in. Wukong very strong, does have a bit of early pressure, allows you that dive potential as well. But we're the LJL. We don't experiment. We just play what we know. So it's going to be Viego, and we both know it's Ezreal afterwards.
Yeah, it does seem to be the likely option, these teams enjoying the Viego counterpick into Wukong so much here. CGA wanting to get hybrid set up. I wouldn't be surprised to see them waiting on a Kai'Sa pick, depending how things do shape up. Hybrid really been enjoying that one this split. They're really liking this aggressive playstyle for themselves. Ezreal, of course, a bit more sit back, let the support roam, but they're on red side, so no experimentation. As you pointed out, it is going to be the Ezreal snap up. What do you want to see the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks pick up in response here?
So first, let me tell you what I know they're going to pick, which is Kai'Sa Nautilus. And we're going to predict every pick that comes down this pick band, because that's what we do here.
That seems preposterous.
Or is it Senna TK, one or the other? No, so I think that Kai'Sa is fine. It's not ideal here. It's a little bit awkward. Senna actually makes a lot of sense, as you can play Senna TK in this situation, and Ezreal never really does anything. You just scale equally into it, and then potentially you can run options like the Corki later on, which has been such a priority pick. Problem is that if you give Corki now, you get double ban mid, and Lissandra is already off the table, right? So as far as the other control mages available, there's not a lot you can really play into it that I think is hard winning anymore. On top of that, there's still obviously Kaito's amazing Zoe on the table, and even this Karma, which can start to bully that lane a little bit, but with TK being as tanky as he is, the matchup isn't as bad as it used to be.
Yeah, for sure, as we do see Gwen picked off here in the beginning of the second ban phase. That Karma going to prove able next to Ezreal in making the lane even safer, give them the movement speed, give them a little bit more poke. Synergizes very well, an oft-paired partner for the wannabe Indiana Jones that is Ezreal down in the bot lane. But SoftBank Hawks are going to take another LJL staple off the board in the top lane. It's going to be Gnar off the board, and we won't be seeing our favorite little cave Yordle. How do we want CGA to round it out here? Is it going to be another top lane pickoff?
I mean, almost certainly, right? There's so many options still available. We've seen the Sejuani, we've seen the Gnar, but the Galio is the ban out instead, so they're worried about the Galio, Wukong, potentially Camille coming through as well here for Kinatu. To me, the obvious thing that runs through my mind is whether or not Kinatu will go for that greedy Kayle pick again. We've seen it a lot. The Gwen is off the table. It's the other thing that has been prioritized here for the SoftBank Hawks. I am a bit of a Kayle hater. I don't think the champ is bad. I just think there's other things you can play. But, you know, it is something they can go towards. And CGA, they won't be going towards that Zoe.
Yeah, it's going to be another solo lane block, as it's going to be Zoe banned out, but it's the Ornn Horn being summoned into the top lane for Nap. This is a very, not necessarily synergistic with what we expect from CGA through this split. This draft, much more scaling, much more reserved, not as lane dominant, especially the Ornn up there in that top lane can scrap, but more of the scaler, and now the Hawks are considering the Corki in response.
Yeah, and there's a big problem here as well for Red Side, and it's the fact that you now have the option of drafting GP plus Corki on Blue Side, and there's nothing Red Side has left that they can really play into it. Camille won't function in exactly the same way, but it does give you an alternate win condition of trying to split push the Knight away. You can also potentially get onto that Ezreal a little bit more effectively. The reason I say the GP, though, is that I don't think Red Side has enough effective engage to actually follow up on Ornn ult right now. You can just drop the ulti and get in the way, but no, we're greedy on that Kayle again, and this is a really interesting one now, because it creates this dynamic where we're going to be playing through sort of the mid lane, I imagine, here, depending on mid lane counterpick, And this KO just gets to free scale in this matchup versus the Ornn. However, the question is, will you ever be able to get into your effective range to actually hit anyone? And I think that's going to be a really tough task here for Kinatu later on.
Definitely so. It's a much stronger draft identity, it feels like, for the Hawks coming through so far. They have more options, it feels like, with equal amounts of scaling sprinkled on top. Tell me about this Ahri counterpick into the Corki matchup, because it doesn't necessarily immediately go to my head what they're aiming for here. I don't know exactly how this matchup does play out, so what can you tell me about that?
So the general idea, I imagine, is you're playing around Ahri Charm, follow that up with Viego, utilizing level 6 onwards, and then you play through either that top side or that bot side, as they both at level 6 will have at least some options to help you out. I mean, the Ornn obviously helps, but Mantra E is also enough usually to get you in range of a Kai'Sa Tahm Kench. So you have some ability then to impact the rest of the map. It is one that used to be considered similar in regards to the Ahri Azir matchup, and you play it very similarly. The problem is that it doesn't work the same way, because now you have package to consider. So from 8 minutes into the game, whenever that's available, you don't actually get the chance to really go aggressive. But there is an argument to be made that Ahri just ults in, trades ult for package, and you're winning. But that is kind of dependent on the other team not having a Tahm Kench in the area, which is obviously not going to happen unless you are just bad. So we will see what ends up happening in this one. But it's not as good as it used to be because of the ulti poke build that has changed away from that more auto-based build where it was more of a harder counter.
All right, the effective range for that Corki going up, revolving around getting those rockets out off the ultimate, and not so much the short auto attack range. Definitely going to be an uphill battle, it feels like, for CGA on red side. Maybe not as comfortable going with some of these more defensive lane picks, but the scaling is there in droves for them as we do hit the rift for game number 1 of day 4 of the LJL. Should be a banger and a half. I think these teams are very close in level right now, Recollect. Very excited to see who can come out on top here.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is one positive here for the side of CGA, and that is the fact that they're the ones that have that priority early. They're the ones who are able to be proactive early on, because they've got the Ahri, which will do fairly well into this Corki to start with. They've got that range support versus melee support matchup in the bottom side with the Karma Ezreal, so they should get prior there. And Kayle isn't exactly going to do much early either, so Kassin has the ability to essentially path wherever you want to. You can do whatever you want here in this early game. And Kassin is someone who, when given that much opportunity, can do a lot.
Yeah, as it looks like they're going for a bit of a cheeky fight here. That is the Abyssal Voyage, and it's already the flash going to come out from Nemo. The Ignite goes down onto Blank, going to have to backtrack it out. This is just like my solo queue games here, Recollect. This is a lot of cooldowns being traded early on, and now Kassin going for the chickens, going to get rooted up, but they're not going to contest him. They're going to give that camp over.
Yeah, I mean, CGA is the team that's just the stronger ones at level 1. You've got Ezreal Karma. You're never really going to lose that one out. Plus, with Senna starting the W, it means you're not going to have that AoE healing option as well. So it means that SHG, they're the ones that are actually going to fall behind a little bit here, as Blank has to start that blue a little bit slower, does put you about half a camp speed behind, and creates a vertical jungling section. So this is a weird one where I actually think the Hawks aren't entirely unhappy, though, because you do get to protect your KL a little bit by setting up this vertical jungling. And it's quite hard to kill a Senna Tahm Kench lane, especially with the Ezreal Karma if you play safe. So it does mean that you are going to get poked to death under the tower, but the Hawks overall not going to be completely unhappy about this.
No, for sure. Getting those early Summoner Spell cooldowns off of Nemo does reduce some of the pressure you might be facing as you are the less prioritized bot lane in the early going. What I really like here was Blank being very aware, putting some of that long veterancy to use in his awareness, sneaking around a ward. As you point out, it's pretty obvious the vertical jungle situation is going to come out, but it was actually Kassin going from clearing the enemy chicken and red right into, looks like wolves, into his top side. So he might expect his red buff to still be there, because their ward did not spot out Blank going in.
Yeah, I mean, even if you do end up making that mistake, you can also just path down afterwards, which I think is exactly what Kassin will do. And because the fact that Wukong has taken your top side, it actually means that those camps will respawn faster. So it means now that Kassin on second clear will be quite ahead of Blank, despite them doing similar camps. Because you can now do this crab, maybe invade, take away that Raptors, or you can move back to your own blue side, take a reset, and realistically your topside camps will start to be respawning in the near vicinity. So it looks super weird, and I think Blank will end up slightly ahead because of it. But in the long term, it's actually Kassin that will end up coming ahead in experience, especially when it comes to that key sort of level 5, level 6 mark.
Yeah, definitely so. We are just waiting, of course, though, for the big tools to force these fights to come back around. In the meanwhile, it is just going to be Blank licking the wounds and trying to catch back up. Thankfully, this is still 12-11, as we pointed out in the pregame, so we'll have some capability to hyper farm and try and catch back up to that XP differential that you do mention between himself and Kassin. But no jungle impact onto the lanes as of yet, but maybe some impact from Ezreal down onto Reyna, going to get some nice poke down onto the TK, but it's such a oppressive sustain lane when you pair up this Catfish with the Senna, Recollect.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor in this lane is the fact that thick skin is just so useful, right? You've got that tongue lash heal, but you've also got just the thick skin regenning. So even though you are getting poked out, a lot of that becoming shield and then becoming HP back if you don't pop it means that poking a TK out of lane now is honestly harder than it used to be. It used to just be a case if you picked melee lane versus Karma, you just cried, but Senna sustain plus Tarm is just enough to make it playable. As Blank trying to make it more than playable here in the bot side, is looking for it. I think it's going to be hard to find.
Yeah, they had the wave control in droves, did Crest Gaming. Weren't going to allow that wave to get pushed back out, as that poke is actually really deadly coming through onto Marble. Does pull back into safety's range, but definitely a juicy target here for an early dive. They have the vision of Kassin coming through. These tier 1 turrets are a lot tougher. These dives could be very dangerous.
Yeah, it's teleport on the Tahm Kench, so there's no exhaust available here to drop some of that damage. Kaito also roaming down. They might wait on their mid laner, but the wave isn't big enough to do that, so it feels as though, at the very least, the Hawks are going to get one more wave, and at this point, Marble has had some time to heal up thanks to those Qs.
Yeah, that is the Senna healing. Once Blank sort of made the presence aware to Kassin, said, no, it's all right, guys, we'll take the Drake, we'll start stacking these objectives up. So a very nice early game from Crest Gaming here. I'm sure Middlecott is very happy at home watching this one, as we do see that Ocean Drake go on over. Nice little pickup for them.
Yeah, what's also worth noting, take a look at that bot lane CS. It's already a reasonable advantage here being accrued for the side of CGA, and this Ezreal, if given a free lane, can also scale into a monster too. Let's be honest with you, 2 to 3 items, it's all Ezreal in this game. There's no one who can really match the champion in terms of that spike, and CGA, when they do hit that point, their champs are online. You've got the Engager for Ornn, you've got Ahri with that Everfrost coming through, same with Ezreal and his damage items, and Karma, utility-wise, comes pretty much to its strongest spot. So look at that mid game. It's going to be disgustingly strong here for CGA, and they're already powering into it with this Sheen buy.
Yeah, that they are. Early power for the Ezreal will mean so much once that next Drake does hit the Rift in 4 minutes. If they can continue pushing these waves with the efficacy they've shown so far, absolutely not afraid to get down and dirty right up to the opposing turret. And now they're even going to pick up a little Scuttle Crab treat for Hybrid as well.
Yeah, just munch on that one a little bit to add to that CS, inflate it a little bit more. As the wave is still pushing back, you're not going to lose much for it. And I like the attempt here from Blank as well on the top side. Wasn't quite able to find that one, but now going to path towards that bot side. It's one of those cases of when you don't have anything to do, you have no reason not to try and go for a gank, because all your camps are on reset anyway. You're on what I'd effectively call dead time, which means that you've got nothing. There's no reason for you to be doing anything on the map. So I like the attempt. Nothing came of it. Just go back, get your red buff, clear bot to top again. Maybe you do the same thing in a couple minutes.
Yeah, no harm, no foul when there's no camps to be picking up. Not really effectively falling behind an XP in that case. Instead, going to look for the opportunities to make this very aggressive Wukong pick that we've seen do so well in the early goings of the LJL pop off. Now gets back to the camps, but we do see some heavy trading in the bot lane. Going into the Shroud is Marble, chunked out to about half, but no all-in angle does exist, so things will just be continuing to play out as a tug of war for wave state, and the shove does get completed.
Yeah, and whilst the CS isn't increasing, that's always going to benefit the side of the SoftBank Hawks, because you've got that Senna constantly stacking the souls, constantly gaining some form of advantage back for the team. So unless Hybrid and Nemo can start to push a little bit harder and get something from it, well, they might not get a chance to.
Yeah, Blank sat and absorbed the XP until he got that Cyclone, but it won't result in the kill. Was just a hair's breadth away from that level 6 mark. Did find it. Used the priority they had generated in that shove to get where there was no vision. Unfortunately, doesn't get you anything but the flash in that situation. We'll have to try again in that 5-minute window.
Yeah, love the attempt there. Just not quite possible. It's one of those where the Tamkich isn't providing the best engage, so it is a Wukong, and because of that, you are likely just going to get that flash trade unless you can get the follow-up with the center W, but unfortunately, not going to land that one just yet. But really good stuff here from the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. They usually are a team that the early game isn't the best in the world, and I think Marble and Reina have struggled a little bit over the course of the season, but at least now they're starting to show some, a little bit more control, shall we say, in their own matchups.
For sure. I mean, Marble in general, right, was this very heralded Academy player coming up from, I believe, the V3 system last year, where it was an undefeated Academy squad. Was expected to do a lot more in spring. Sort of fell on the face in the attempt. Didn't quite get the reception that we wanted for Marble, so it would be nice to see that growth coming in along summer. But we have Kassin and Blank. They're going to not quite tango around the blue buff. Blank doesn't want any part of it. Orange here. Just have to slink off to the wolves.
Yeah, and crucially, Kinatu was chunked earlier. Using that Spellbook Ignite just for that poke damage means that you can't really roam now as the KO because you're hard losing as soon as the ulti gets channeled from the Ornn. Engage bot line, though.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm not going to connect on the Abyssal Voyage, and when it's missed, it is the free tether, but look at Nemo getting rooted up. Does use that Q to dissuade Marble from walking up for another taste, another soul proc. Just what we've come to expect, right, from the LJL 2022 summer so far. It's 10 minutes and not a whole lot of meaningful action. We've seen some cooldowns exchange, but no big economic breakpoints really achieved for either squad yet.
Yeah, nothing really coming out that you would really like to see from either side, but CGA are the ones that, whilst they do have the advantage, you'd like them to push a little bit more, because the gold is actually going in the Hawks' favor now. Despite the champions being a little bit better for CGA on these current items, it feels a little bit awkward, and with Dasher picking up that package, you feel like the first fight could be around this dragon, but I don't think CGA really wants to fight it just yet.
Yeah, it will depend, of course, on how good the setup can be. The Windrake is on the Rift, and there are some pinks in the vicinity, as we do see the package used by Dasher there. I'm not quite sure what the motivation was, except maybe to get the mid-prio for Drake. Kassin's there. He's just chilling.
Doesn't seem like the best play, because now I think CGA have the green light to just get the dragon. It feels as though, like, Corki without package versus Corki with package is a massive difference. I understand potentially they're worried about Essence Reaver here on the Ezreal. Potentially they don't want to fight that, but I still think that Corki with package is enough to realistically zone out Kaito and create a 4v3 situation in that river. But maybe it was picked up a little bit too early. Maybe there's just a mistake there. But Dasher, that's... I mean, following the namesake, I guess, just dashing in.
Yeah, using... How could we expect the Dasher not to dash? It's like asking the cage bird not to sing. It does speak to something we've seen with the SoftBank Hawks, who we expected to be a much better team over the course of spring and so far in summer, which is that at times they just seem a little bit scattered. You pick up the package as Dasher, and the expectation is there's going to be a Drake fight. You're going to make a run for it. And instead, not really any commitment from the squad as a whole. It does make you wonder what the situation is in the comms there. But now we have Kassin coming on in. It's going to be the Devour from Reina out onto Marble. And once again, the action is effectively dissuaded here.
Yeah, welcome to Center Tam Kench, the lane where no one ever dies unless they make horrible errors. And yeah, that didn't happen this time round. It's just going to be that Herald dropped in the bottom lane. But at the very least, as I say, you do get the Heralds, you do get the plates, you do get first tower gold. So even though the play isn't 100% effective as you might want it to be, it doesn't need to be. You still get what you want out of it. The only bad part here is that obviously Koki is now hitting mid tower, so good usage of the ulti there from Marble in order to delay Kaito's reset, as you can't really go back to mid with no mana.
Yeah, it is more or less an equal game state in terms of gold, but those Drakes piling up for Crest Gaming Act here. They also are not too far off from those ornaments, recollect. Level 10, we're going to start seeing those come in just a few levels. Definitely feels like that scaling train is about to hit the station at any moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And given the fact that Item-wise, they are starting to hit major breakpoints. I mean, it's first item here for Viego, Divine Sundra. You've got second about to come through here for Hybrid on the Ezreal, because Ezreal items are way too cheap, let's be honest. That is, it's kind of ridiculous that he's just always ahead of everyone every game, considering that Senna is a lethality user too, so it's a champion that realistically builds pretty well too. Obviously, not going to get as much because you are farming the souls more than you're farming the minions. Yeah, exactly. It ain't Ramadan, but we're still fasting here on the Senna. But, you know, it is one of those. However, on top of that, the Everfrost here for the Ahri coming through, it's really some strong aspects. However, once Corki ends up getting those 2 items, fully completes his stacks, that's when I start to get a bit more worried for CGA.
Yeah, inshallah, the package gets used a little bit smarter next time around, but it will be up to Dasher to find a lot of this poke damage and does get some down onto Kaito. One thing I think is also really important to note with Hybrid on this Ezreal, not only are the items cheap, CGA plays around Hybrid so heavily. It's just how they've always done it. I mean, this season we've seen Nap start to shine in the other solo lane, the other side lane as well, but picking up scuttle crabs, getting crab dinners on behalf of his jungler. You know, Hybrid just has so much access to currency on the map. Definitely going to be an economic superstar for Crest Gaming Act.
Yeah, I also think it's worth noting that it's very hard to actually find access onto the Ezreal with the comp that SHG have drafted for themselves. I mean, who is the one that's able to engage onto him? It's pretty much all Corki with package, or it's all Wukong. There is no one else who can really find anything because Tahm W is the slowest spell in human history. So you actually just can't hit this thing unless the other team disconnects their monitors or they're already CC'd. And I guess disconnecting your monitor is basically a blind, right? So I guess it works out. Either way, there's nothing really that you can do as the Tahm Kench offensively into a champion like Ezreal. So it's really dependent on that initial engage coming in here from Blank and just a general slow reaction from Hybrid. And because of that, giving this gold over, making sure that your Ezreal is up 40 CS as Hybrid and Nemo has done such a good job of in this bot lane, it creates a lot of problems here for the Hawks later on.
Absolutely. We see Marble getting absolutely chunked by the aggressive arcane shift forward from Hybrid. It does speak to as Reyna's going to pop that unsealed spellbook ghost. Just flexing a little bit, just trying to scare Hybrid off. Don't want to make the aggressive move in this lane state, but I was a bit surprised here, recollect, that Camille that was hovered in draft wasn't taken by the SoftBank Hawks. Would have given them a winning lane to play through, and it would have given them even more dive threat into the backline. That Hextech ultimatum could have been the tool you speak to really lock down Ezreal and keep him from flashing and blinking away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing the argument that's being made is things like, don't worry, guys, we can use ulti to, like, peel our backline, or we can use it to assist the Wukong dive, but it's like, Wukong just becomes kind of a dead champion now after 15 to 20 minutes, which is where we're at right about now, because finding access onto an Ahri Ezreal is basically impossible for them, whilst actually being significant, because if you dive in onto either of those two, 1, good luck finding access to begin with, 2, even if you do, you're going to die, because no one can help or follow up, so it's a really awkward pivot, I think, and I wonder how much of this is just what I'd call copy greed, where you just see other people playing this and you go, oh, it must be the best thing in every situation, so let's just play it without thinking about the context of when it's being picked or when it shouldn't be picked. And luckily for SHG,
is doing work.
Yeah, you've still got the poke, you've still got the package to zone, so the Hawks kind of get away with whatever they want in this situation, and Dasher could just package straight across them and just not care.
Yeah, and there's the package used just to sort of find the counterplay on the mid lane Herald. It's not even going to take this mid lane tier 1 here, so nicely done by the SoftBank Hawks. Dasher quietly been farming up a storm and puts that early Leandries plus completed Manamune to good work, waiting for that to stack on up into the more mana where those rockets will get even more obnoxious. But Dasher chunking out multiple members, forcing them to make the Herald play instead of contesting that third Drake.
And this is where the Corki bailout might come to fruition, right? Because this champion can do so much if you can't get onto them. And CGA, engaging him
Marble. He's going to get gobbled up and spit away there, so he does live. But man, oh man, that Sen is in a scary spot if Tahm Kench is ever anywhere except for right next to her.
I was going to say, I don't think that's a kill. I figure we'll watch it anyway, but it's one of those where Senna Tahm Kench is just so safe, right? The ability to stop any autos coming through thanks to the E, as well as the movement speed, as well as the Devour, etc., etc. There's just so much ability to get out of harm's way. And I think this is a really interesting pickup here for Marble and Reyna as well. As I said, struggled a little bit in general, but has gotten better as a duo. But if you are worried and you just want to play through Dasher, who arguably has been the best player for them this split, this can essentially act as a kind of buffer where you just say, yeah, we're bad, but can you kill us? I don't think you can. Like that's kind of what this is kind of what this bot lane does. It's just best of luck. You can't do anything.
And you know what? That is exciting League of Legends right there. We love to see the AD carry become unkillable. Oh, it's wonderful. Speaking of loving the LJL, here's something that I've noticed, Recollect. It's not just a bug that tortures us in the amateur scene any longer. We have a Hextech Rift, we have a Hextech Soul Drake, but does the replay tool of this Tier 1 professional League of Legends league reflect that? No, they have the same bugs we do. Ignore that upper left corner of the screen, folks. It's not a Wind Drake hitting the Rift in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It's a Hextech Drake. Welcome to our world, as this mid lane Tier 1 does finally fall down.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is a combination of a small indie company with only 200 hours of experience, right? So it makes sense that there's still a couple of bugs in there, and it is what it is, right? But moving away from bugs, as we got no Kazakhs in this game, Viego and Wukong both quietly farming to this one too, both relevant now, getting those Divine Sunderers, and it is at the point now where they can both essentially one-shot backlines. The problem is, for both of them, is that finding enough damage that they can do so easily without trading their lives is very difficult, right? I think of Viego as a kind of reset-based champion, right? You do a bunch of work first, and then he comes in as your end game and just cleans up the fight afterwards. It's very difficult, I think, to do something like that against this Hawks composition because you have so much defensively to keep them alive. They've got the center time catch, obviously, both able to play at long ranges, as well as the peel that comes innately from having TK. You've got Corki with the Valkyrie. You've got the Divine Judgment, as well as just this Kale keeping your whole team alive as well with the heals and the ulti. So it's very difficult, I think, to pilot this Viego as we go later and later. So my eyes are actually on Kaito. I want to see this Ahri, who hasn't really done a lot just yet, as that sort of mid-game counter pick, to be more aggressive and show why you feel so comfortable to draft this champion as your sort of big final trump card.
Yeah, we do see the dance around this Tier 1. Dasher eating a whole lot of poke, trying to defend this structure, and it will be defended, but here comes Hybrid, so aggressive to land that True Shot Barrage right in Blank's face. No fear. This 2-item Ezreal with the Tiamat pumping out so much damage.
Yeah, a lot of damage coming through there. It was just a faster rotation as well from CGA, so they're able to move through that topside jungle, take that 4 versus 2 situation, and just get themselves that tower pretty freely. So excellent stuff from them. Love that little macro adjustment, and it shows that they at least have an idea of how they want to push the tempo. Problem is, we're 21 minutes in, and it's only a 1.5k gold advantage. It's not really where you want it to be at this point.
This is true, but we do have the effective gold advantage of our very first ornament coming through.
Hey.
That is going to be the Frozen Fist upgrade for Nap in the top lane, playing that super tank fighter, mage, assassin, what have you. And it is going to be a nice little collection of summoner spells there with the exhaust and the TP right ahead of this Hextech Drake, the Soul Point Drake for CGA on the Rift. We will see how he puts it to use. Going to be building up a storm on something else there as well. Looks like Magic Resist. How fun.
Yeah, crucially, by the way, Corki isn't here just yet, but did just pick up the package, so Teleport will need to be channeled. However, you've got to remember just how effective Dasher can be in a situation. Drake going low.
Yeah, that's going to be the knockup for Nap, but here comes Dasher with the package and the Dawning Shadow over the top. It's going to be so effective now, the Cyclone follow-up and the Divine Intervention on top of it. They just don't run out of tools here, do SoftBank Hawks, as they pick up the first blood, and another kill now onto the Viego. They might not have picked up the Drake for themselves, but they do finally win our first fight of the game at 22 minutes, and they're trying to parlay this right into Baron, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you get Soul Point, but if the Baron goes down, you have to wonder how much that's going to matter for the rest of the game. It does create the potential of stealing the Soul, but look at how quick they do it. Look at the poke. There's nothing you can do to even contest this. It's just going to be the Baron over to the Hawks here, unless Hybrid's got anything to do.
No, I don't think the Ezreal has anything to say about that. It would have been heroic in the extreme if Hybrid had found that steal there. But the SoftBank Hawks, just a little too quick on the uptake. The positioning was good as we do get this replay here on the Drake fight.
Yeah, a part of me wonders why Dasher didn't go straight away, but did delay it, left the 50-50 on the table, and Viego gets in. It gets low, but it's not enough. Stopwatch over the top with the package burning. But after that, Blank's got more than enough here to act as that front line to be the engager, and the chase down comes through. There's not a lot that can be done, but that big one is going to erupt through all the members, pick up another kill, crucially onto the jungler, and from there, it's a 2-for-0 easy pickup there of the Baron.
Indeed, indeed. And now they will put this Baron to use, pressuring these objectives. Going to crack open a nice mid lane tier 1 for themselves to mirror that which they have lost. Going to hover 4 members around this mid lane here while the Kayle is off in the side lane. And this is a well and truly realized Kayle here, recollect. It's a Kraken Slayer coming in. Can anybody stop Kanatu on the side lane here?
Oh, it's very, very difficult, especially with the team now being able to set up that vision towards that bottom side. You're able to hover between both of the lanes as you want to do so, and it means that the rotation is always going to be slightly faster here from the Hawks. Nice chunk here from Hybrid. Definitely still does damage, 3 items on that Ezreal, but at the moment, it's just so difficult to find the right angles.
Yeah, that's going to be so much damage down onto Nemo, but they're trying to punish Dasher for it. Kassin going to land the stun, but forced to turn tail and walk away. But now Nap's calling the Forge God, going to find a double knockup, but it was just a clone and his monkey pal. Nothing doing off the back of that ultimate. CGA sort of feeling like they're floundering at this point.
Yeah, the biggest issue with that is we're now a minute away from the Baron expiring, and that means that realistically, with the Call of the Forged God on cooldown, you don't have another major engage tool that you can really utilize as CGA. It means that here for the Hawks, they can sort of just reset, maybe take that top outer tower play for the economy Baron, which is kind of what they've been doing so far. But we don't really care about those inner towers or the inhibitors. We just want whatever standing gold is available, and from there, you're going to gain enough of a gold advantage that this next fight is very, very difficult. And on the subject of difficult, how about someone who's difficult to kill? Dasher picking up that GA. Maybe not the item that a lot of people would be expecting, but in this game, finding access to the core key at this point is everything. And when you've got a KL ulti as well as a GA, very hard to do.
Yeah, it's like getting traveler's insurance, right? It's not the exciting move, but it's the one that makes sense. Going to give Dasher a second life in these team fights, as they will now take the turret lead here by picking up the last of the tier 1s, well and truly encroaching into what was once CGA territory. Their map control should be pretty deadly moving forward. One thing that really speaks to me about this comp, too, as we're hitting this 25-minute mark, is with Marble picking up souls like nobody's business on the fasting center, they have so much range to play with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the biggest aspect of the Hawks, and kind of why Viego is going to become so much harder to play as the game goes on, and it's just the fact that you cannot effectively touch this composition if your name is not Ezreal. And that's a really, really big deal, because if you can't access this core key, the ults are going to hurt. If you can't access Mabel, the autos are going to hurt. If you can't stop the other team from essentially keeping you at standstill, the game just gets worse and worse via a war of attrition, because Senna TK is going to keep the other team alive from engages, but also sustain up thanks to those Qs.
35 seconds to go here on the Hextech Drake. It would be the Soul Drake for CGA if they can sneak it away. I have to ask you, will it be enough if they can manage to pick up that Drake, even if it entails heavy losses in the trade?
I mean, if it entails heavy losses at this point, I think the game could just be over here from the Hawks. Big thing, though, is the package has not been picked up here for Dasher. They don't have that massive cooldown this time around, which could be the fight winner. However, trying to base for it now will TP. I think that means you're going to be a little bit slow, unfortunately, though. So maybe CGA gets an angle to burn this. Maybe this is a misplay here from the Hawks.
Yeah, we see Dasher picking that one up right as the Drake hits the rift. Here we go. They're right on to the Hextech Dragon.
Look at the
putting
flank.
the damage down, but look at that flank TP. It's going to be so nasty from Dasher. Now here comes the call of the Forge God to try and dissuade them for just a while. The Dawning Shadow over the top, and Nemo already dead! And now it's going to be the Ornn to follow suit. Dasher gigantic on this Corgi, denying the soul, winning the fight. Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming looking absolutely transcendent right now, but Hybrid has something to say about it. Going one-on-one, mano-a-mano with the TK and going to pick it up for Kassin. Blank not going to want to face tank all that damage, going to turn and run, but look at his team pushing the base.
Yeah, the gift from hell there from Dasher just burns the entirety for their health bars, rips through the entirety of that fight, and Nap gets isolated on the front. No one can step past it with fear of just being roasted alive. There's nothing that can be done, and for me, I thought this was a bit slow. I thought it was late. I thought CGA might be able to burn it down, but they're apprehensive. They're worried. They don't know where Dasher is, and they over-respect, and because of that, they can't burn the dragon down. Nap looks for an engage, but unfortunately, burn. There goes the thrusters. Someone's been watching a little bit of Maverick because Dasher runs in, and at that point, Nap's got nothing to do. What can you do as the Ornn when your whole team is miles away? It's easy pickings here for the side of the Hawks.
Yeah, they are well and truly in control now, picking up that second Hextech Drake, picking up a decisive team fight win. 6K is the gold advantage with the second Baron of the map soon to spawn. Supers barreling down that mid lane should give them all the room they need to set up for that Nashor.
Yeah, it's just one of those now where everything is looking comfortable here for the Hawks. You know, there is always that possibility of a steal. There is always that opportunity here with what CGA have, though. They can look for the ulti engages here with the Spirit Rush. Maybe you can get something off that, but Dasher does so much damage!
Yeah, the aggressive Valkyrie forward just to make sure that poke lands. Nap getting half health by Kanatu right in his face as well. All confidence coming from the Hawks, and you can see exactly why here. I mean, what do they have to be afraid of at this point?
I mean, absolutely. And remember, Dasher still has that GA available. There's still a Tom Kitch. There's still Senna ulti over the top. There's still Kale. There's so many tools. I mean, we didn't really identify it before, but this is the Dasher comp. This is all eggs in that mid lane basket, and the Corki is showing up huge.
Yeah, another aggressive Valkyrie into 3 members. No fear with the team right there to back him up. Dasher just absolutely chatting out in this match. Going to be working towards that Void Staff as well to absolutely melt through any and all magic resist that might have been picked up. And this should be the angle to start this Nashor. The only thing I can think of here, Recollect, and you pointed out before, it's all up to Ezreal at this point, and CGA have been in that position many times where they've counted on Hybrid. It's going to start with a nice True Shot barrage, but they can just turn blank going forward, but the Vessel Voyage doesn't connect, and now it might be the Wukong caught out, but look at that nice combination of ultimates to keep Marble going in the back half. Dasher as well, still not had that Guardian Angel procced. They will trade the Kale, but Dasher can reload on these bolts and try again, but look at the deep angle for Hybrid all the way around the horn. Here comes Nap, doesn't find the knockup, but Marble will be caught out. Are they actually doing this? You've got to be kidding me. Dasher, he's stuck. Where can he go? Oh my goodness, that's just going to be the GA popped, and you are in a wrong spot as this Corki going to be picked up by Hybrid. I can't believe it. Just as I didn't caster curse him, just as I was saying, here he comes. That's what he does.
I mean, they find the angle somehow. I just don't know how there's anything there for the side of the Hawks, like, losing this one. But CGA, they find something from absolutely nowhere. I mean, just look at the way that this starts off, by the way. Dasher just chunks Kaito for half their health before the fight even breaks out. But the Baron is already getting blank fairly low. It feels like maybe there's something that can be done. And Hybrid just goes madman. Avoids the Rhino engage, and the Ornn Horn is everything from this point on. 2 dead almost immediately. And it's just Marble chunked so much that you can't do anything. It's all Kinatu, all Dasher, but the charm hits. They find their inconsistent engage. It's all that they've been looking for the whole game, and finally it comes out. And from here, what are you going to do? Yes, the knockup misses. Doesn't matter. It's completely meaningless at this point, because Dasher, the GA is great, but if you're already the last one left, there's nothing that can be done to follow it. And suddenly, it feels like CGA, they've managed to find the flip that they were looking for on the coin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really at a loss for words as Rhino just going to get absolutely eliminated. Was interrupted in the midst of the escape attempt, and look at this Baron push right in time to secure themselves a Soul Drake as well. Crest Gaming Act absolutely getting away with murder, but Hybrid played the last fight so well, shifting away just as Blank tried to find the engage angle. I mean, how many times can they go to this playbook and get away with it? They should get this soul here, unless SoftBank Hawks pull out some extreme heroics.
Yeah, Blank has a chance, though.
Oh, he finds the steal! Right in and out!
Package.
He takes the clone over the wall!
Yeah, and Corki TP'd in for this as well. I was wondering whether Dasher might try something on the back half, but the steal comes through. Well, I won't lie to you, I kind of thought that was just going to be the Dragon donation, but they don't go for it. They risk the 4v5 situation, and Blank just walks up, jumps the wall, smites that one away, and that makes up for a couple of games in the past. Blank might not have been having the best of those 50-50s as of late, but finds it this time around, and it's just a case of no one on CGA playing zone control. Nemo realizes at the end, but no one else has moved, and at that point, Blank is already way too close, gets that clutch smite on very, very low HP.
That was absolutely wild coming on through from the Monkey King there for Blank. And now this game has gone from 0 to 100 in the course of about 10 minutes. And it's really wild. Could go either way at this point. I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's still completely even in gold here, Recollect, as it was every other time we've checked in. What is happening here?
Yeah, it's a very strange one to watch. There's definitely misplays from both sides, but I think the most interesting thing is that the gold looks even. And you go, but ornaments, that means that red side is ahead. But then you go, Corki versus Ari and Souls, and it's like actually even because of these facts. So it's a weird one where the Hawks technically have infinite scaling, and that makes them outscale. But as far as relevant scaling, the game isn't blowing up one way or the other. However, the carries just blew up from that Ezreal ulti.
Yeah, Hybrid pumping out the damage, going for the Sinning Ezreal build and making it look good with this Duskblade of Drakthar. Ornament upgrade coming in as well, absolutely chunking out various members. Things looking pretty good for CGA off the back of that push. Didn't quite crack the base, but they can pick up a consolation prize by rolling back, choking out the resources, going Scorched Earth, and picking up the camps on the reset.
Yeah, unfortunately for the side of CGA, they have some poke, but it's not enough to really poke out under tower, right? Unless these Ezreal ults are chunking everyone as well as a lot of Mystic shots, it's quite difficult to do so. So until one of these two teams takes that Baron, you have to feel like any objectives really being secured isn't that likely. So we're going to enter a bit of a lull state now for a moment, where both of these teams allowing their carries to sort of suction up as much farm as possible. Marble and Dash are wanting to get a little bit more of that into their back pockets. Same obviously going to Kaito and Hybrid, and I feel like Hybrid has to just put those carry pants on. It's been a really impressive performance on this Ezreal, finding those angles and playing with such aggression and trust in their own mechanics. I've loved watching it, specifically that Baron fight earlier, right? But you have to wonder how much they can do in these situations. How much more can Hybrid possibly find to bail out this team?
The eternal question of Crest Gaming Act fans, I assure you, as we will be seeing, as you said, the setup, as these objectives aren't on the Rift quite yet, moving into enemy territory, are Crest Gaming to get this vision down, eyeing up a tier 2 for themselves, a nice little gold pinata of about a half K available there, even going to be committing the TP from Hybrid, looking for it. Dasher, though, has the GA back up, and this poke still as deadly as ever.
Yeah, the poke is not going away. The Corki happily scaling into it, and again, it is just that poke battle, right? Between the Ezreal and the Corki. Senna's in there a little bit too now with the amount of souls that you've got, but it feels like Corki is just winning that one pretty consistently. But Dasher very low on those rockets. A fight isn't ideal here.
Yeah, they're actually going to force the Shurelias out of the opposing side, our SoftBank Hawks, but they could be the ones to get engaged on as the Forge God is called, but they're not ready to commit to a fight to the death, are either of these teams. It feels like with no objectives on the map quite yet to secure off the back half, they're going to say, no, guys, it's okay, let's do this again in 45 seconds.
I might need to see an optician, because I'm pretty sure that Ezreal almost one-shot Senna with R, and then R1 from Ornn. That was ridiculous damage output here from Marble. If you can find anything onto these carries, it's just one-shot central.
Yeah, but Blank failing to find the engage onto the Ezreal again, gets chunked to half. They do find some damage to the SoftBank Hawks, but look at Kaido now. Blank in the backline with the Divine Intervention, going to find the kills. They might have finally done it. Reyna goes so tanky with the thick skin. Sin going to be picked off. Marble picking that one up. It's going to be the 2-for-0. Hybrid whiffing in return as well. That ultimate will find no target. 2 seconds to Baron on the map. It couldn't have been more perfectly timed.
Yeah, it was the big question. Can Blank find any backline access? And this time round, makes it happen with the Cyclone. The flash has to be invested. But with that Kale ulti help, it is enough to secure a lot of... Oh, no.
Marble! No! Hybrid just absolutely playing him for the fool, making the full use of that Ezreal range. At least takes one Baron off the map, but that is going to be the Nasher going over to Hawks. Can they close out with it here?
I mean, just like their namesake, Marble gets absolutely rolled there. I mean, ridiculous stuff there for Hybrid. The damage is there, but there's no one to help. And with that electric-looking Cloud Dragon secured here for the side of the SoftBank Hawks, they've got themselves that soul. And let's be honest, a little bit of ability haste definitely going to help out here for that Corki for the center. A little bit of that shock factor, I think, going to be added as well when those rockets now start to hit. So definitely feeling good if you are the Hawks. However, that mid tower did just end up dropping for the minions alone, and we're going to get to see this one back. And credit to Blank here, utilizing the Hex Gates for that engage, and Hybrid just gets caught a little bit. Good shift at the start, and Blank just goes, you know what? Let's just get in there. Go on. Oh, Flash. Get on the backline. And Nemo just gets absolutely obliterated. There's no turnaround because the follow-up from the long-range abilities here from the center ulti as well as the KL ult. So the follow-up is there.
Kanatu going forward aggressively, but going to pay for it. You have to feel as that is going to be the Ahri taken off the map. Kanatu as well having the stopwatch to go into, and the flash available to get out of dodge. So that is the 1-for-1 jungler for mid laner here. Interestingly enough, it's Crest Gaming feeling comfortable to continue the push. No Baron, no Soul, no problem. They got Hybrid. What do you got, SoftBank Hawks? Well, they got a big one. That's what they've got. And now it's Crest Gaming Act's turn to run away.
Yes, they do in fact have a big one that you have to be scared of if you're not careful. As the Hawks end up unleashing it all over at CGA. Very scary stuff here for Crest Gaming Act.
What's happening, Recollect? Here comes Reyna trying to take the deep angle. Kassin with the GA, not going to be afraid of just the support, but it's the flank that makes the difference, as this should be the victory. Reyna finds one, doesn't quite find the knock-up on Hybrid, who still wants to kite it out, but he's gotten chunked so massively. True Shot Barrage doesn't connect. This is the Baron wave marching up that bottom lane. Hybrid going to have to make a last stand. The healing off the Ravenous Hydra might be enough, but going to make the stand at the base gate at the very least here.
Yeah, TK finding that kill at the end, lickety split there for Reyna. It's a little awkward here for the Hawks, so they've got to wait for this wave. No one actually going back to Baron buff it up is a bit strange, I won't lie to you. I think someone should do that just to speed it up a little bit, speed up the process, because now obviously you are delaying the potential of actually hitting this tower, because Baron creeps will obviously push a little bit faster. It does now mean as well that Nap is going to be up in time to defend at those Nexus towers, maybe defend at that second inhib too. So a little bit awkward here for the side of the Hawks, but I don't think it'll matter too much, as they can reset with their reasonable gold advantage that they've started to accrue for themselves.
Yeah, they crack open that base with a plum. They take 2 lanes worth of inhibitors here. I do want to point out here, it's the boots getting sold up for Hybrid to purchase a Cosmic Drive instead. Going full CDR, got to opt into an item that'll give him a nice amount of movement speed to make up for the sold boots as well. I mean, this guy's doing everything he can here, Recollect.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of the worst feelings in the game, though, when you go from walking to absolutely no movement whatsoever. So Hybrid is sacrificing a bit of that safety, and a part of me wonders how much that might actually help to enable this Wukong, because obviously Blank has been struggling a little bit to find access onto Hybrid. Has only found it the one time so far, and when it did happen, obviously fantastic, worked out really well for them. However, has been quite quiet because of that, and maybe this now enables that limited engage potential here for the Hawks to come to fruition a little bit more. However, obviously, you are sacrificing that in exchange for a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's the last stand, the desperate escalation from Hybrid. There's only one more way to increase that effective damage output, and it's to sell those boots. We'll have to see if he can make it worth it. I mean, the wave clear is still here from CGA, but SoftBank Hawks have all the time in the world to play as 5 on this wave. But here comes Blank getting chunked out off the back of the failed engage. Will get spit out to safety by the TK, though. Can they punish the Catfish? No, they're the ones who are going to get punished. Our Crest Gaming Act by these rockets flying willy-nilly. Kaito taken down to a quarter health, and they just can't do anything except slink off to this mid lane, while Kanatu stays up here pushing in again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a little bit of an awkward one here. I like the attempt here from Kaito, but Reyna just in the right spot, right? This Tahm Kench is there as that big bailout option if things go bad, and Blank gets caught out a little bit. Doesn't matter too much, though, because that Devour is such a fantastic team safety net. You know, it really does help a lot that they gave it that extra movement speed when you eat someone, that obviously the massive shield too. It means that if you can get in range, realistically, whoever Tahm Kench eats never dies afterwards. It's very hard to then pop them. However, getting popped might be Hybrid.
Yeah, Hybrid in the one-on-one fracas with Blank winning that one actually straight up after switching to this Trinity Force. Kasin, though, might have gone a bit too deep to try and find the follow-up. The GA's popped, but it was SoftBank Hawks who had to back off a little bit. So the GA doing its job there. It's the 1-for-0 so far. Hybrid at that point of the game where they can just switch up the items they're playing with. Paid off big time there. The extra mobility of the movement speed on hit, allowing the repositioning, allowing the chase down. I mean, we're through the looking glass here, Recollect. We're hitting 45 minutes. I'm not even sure who's favored at this point anymore.
Well, I think the biggest problem there is that Blank didn't have the Cyclone up. There was no ulti to use there in order to try and turn that around, as Kinatu now just going onto the Baron. They have no jungler. Kasin's in the area. Why are they doing this?
Yeah, I mean, Kasin, can he find the steal? No, he can't. It's the full attack damage Kale, which I take my issues with, but I digress. The take speed there with Senna, Kale, Corki going to be so absolutely massive. They sneak that one right under Crest Gaming Act's noses, and now they're bringing in the Baron TP. Look at this. It was the Elder play coming out. They just have to stop the backs to Crest Gaming to allow Kanatu to end here. It's going to be channeled by Nap. Dasher, as you point out, has the package Marble from behind. They're not backing. Look at Kale. She's on to the Nexus turrets. What can they do about it? They do pick up the Elder. Can Nap find the kill with it? The GA is available. They'll just find the end. What was this game? Divine Intervention coming through. The Nexus going down. Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming picking up the win here.
I mean, if you're going to end a crazy game, you end it in a crazy way, right? It's the beautiful LJL style of absolute chaos. I mean, fantastic match to watch from an observer's standpoint. The coaches are both probably molding, but apart from that, fantastic action from both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much to go over with that game, and we will get to it on the other side of a short break once we are rejoined by Jay Real on the desk. But stay tuned. We need to catch our breaths after that one. We'll be right back.
Well, we are back. We talked about game speed, and speed wasn't really the word, I guess, for this one. It was a bit of a slow one. You know, it took about 22 minutes until we got first blood, which I think was pretty much the nature of this game. We had 7 dragons before we had Soul, and a whole host of barons, and 1 Elder Drake to finish it all. But are you guys... We talked a little about CGA before this game. Are you guys feeling a different type of way? We said we weren't that confident after V3, but did CGA here show that you know what they are competitive, or are you still a little bit like, I'm not sure? Recollect. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, currently lacking ability, we're unable to find that early mid game that they really needed to. As I said before, that the RE pick is kind of important to get the game going before Corki really reaches that 2 to 3 item point. And yeah, of the 2 mid laners, I think in the nicest possible way, Dasher kind of was just disgustingly big in this game. The Rockets were spamming. I would be interested to see what the damage graphs were like in this one, because it's going to be a fight between the 2 carry positions for highest DPM, right? Because whilst this Ezreal pick did so much, and whilst this Corki did so much as well, it felt like the game was actually sort of won more by what champions couldn't do anything. If we're going down the list, the Viego was kind of struggling throughout most of the match. Ornn found 1 or 2 engages, but it's so hard to find onto these very defensive champions. It felt like even the less effective members for the side of the SoftBank Hawks were able to have benefits. You know, they were still able to find ways to help the team and be beneficial. So I think that was kind of what won the day out, as on top of obviously the late game scaling that both teams had.
Yeah, no, definitely. Capability of things to do definitely was a bit of a problem for CGA. Obviously, looking at the comps, look, you got late game from the Hawks. They know how they want to play. They like it slow. They like to go late game. Kale, Corki, Senna, you're all scaling through that mid-late game. You're just going to keep going and getting stronger. From CGA, they had the Ezreal, they had the Ornn, which gave them the ornaments, but as you said, the Ahri, the Viego, they just weren't really able to get too much into this game, and you did really start to feel that in the later stages. And you mentioned Ezreal being the Indiana Jones. Well, for Hybrid, it did feel like he was on the Rift of Doom, you know, Raiders of the Lost Game. That was kind of the CGA story, and do you feel like they could maybe bounce back from this Infinite Dodge? Like, what do you feel? Do you feel like it was a big draft diff, or do you think actually it was the gameplay itself? Because I will say, it was a long game, so CJ clearly hung in it with the Hawks.
Yeah, I think the draft definitely plays a big part, but typically when we talk about draft at the professional level, we think of it as a modifier, right? It has to be really bad to be solo losing it. It's more of a win percentage modifier, somewhere between 10 and 15%. And while I think that CGA didn't necessarily have a good draft for their style or for attacking the Hawks where they were at their weakest, we did see what I think speaks to more of it being a player diff issue, because you look at that one fight that they did win around the Baron Pit that sort of kickstarted the comeback attempt, and it was off the back of Kaito hitting an Ahri charm and doing what they drafted the Ahri to do, finding the pick out early to start the snowball effect through the team fight. Then they got the deep flank with Hybrid popping off, as he so often does, and they were able to find some efficacy in the game. So I think they had win conditions, they had more optimal ways of playing the comp they drafted for themselves, and whether the comp was better or worse, they didn't execute at the level they needed to win the game, and that's ultimately what doomed them here. But when you have a singular carry as talented as Hybrid, I mean, CGA, they've been this way a long time. There are going to be days where you do execute to your comp's win conditions. There are going to be days where that coin lands heads up and you are going to take home the W's. So I don't say my opinion on them has changed one way or the other. I think they are still lovably going to look really good some days and not so great other days. Consistency will always be the biggest bone to pick with CGA, unfortunately.
Yeah, consistency, I think one of those things that really highlights that was the objective taking. Obviously, they got Drakes 1, 2, and 4. They were looking for that final Drake, but weren't able to get it. The steal on the 6th from Blank was absolutely huge. And then on the other side, there was potential for CGA to maybe steal a Baron that was taken with no smite. So recollect, how are you kind of feeling about the objective side of it from CGA? Do you feel like they kind of pushed the boat, they almost got it, and they weren't able to close it out? Or are you saying that, you know what, this is just League of Legends, things happen?
So, firstly, I'd like to amend something I said about during the game, which was to do with the Baron steal. I think it makes sense they didn't go for it, with the idea that
Okay.
Viego had no flash. So the idea is that if you go for the steal and you get it, you're ulting in, you're dying, you're trading, Barrett and Elder's up in 20 to 30 seconds, so you're giving that. And in that game state, you probably lose because you have Elder versus Baron, and
Okay.
they just pick a fight and you lose. So in that regard, I'd like to apologize to, obviously, anyone who was missing. I said the wrong thing, basically. However, that doesn't excuse allowing the Wukong to enter the Dragon Pit. That's very different. There is nothing against that one. It's one of those where you've got the kill, you know that realistically either it's no contest or it's solo contest. So at least have that the wards down, make sure you can spot blank on the way in and cover that. It is hard, but realistically the person watching should be Kaito, because the Charm is the fastest acting CC you really have without messing up your Viego's positioning. It is something that I think is hard to do versus Corki, and it's why I think every other Dragon was one off of a lost team fight on the other side. So it's one where you can't really do a lot about. However, there are measures you can take, right? You can try and blow package early, which is something that they didn't really try to do. You can try to force mini skirmishes first, which they didn't really try to do either. These kind of other potential outplay options you have available to you before a big fight breaks out were there, but I don't think they were properly explored in this match by SHG.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I will say congratulations to the Hawks. I think that they are really hitting the narrative that was set out for them, finally. I feel like Spring Split, we had, Hawks are going to really be good, and they just, I don't know, they just flew way under the radar, you know? It was a bit of an Icarus moment, you know? Like, they flew too close to the sea. Obviously, that's not the story, but he was told that. And then, from the flip side of this time, right now, they're chilling, you know, they're flying away, they're getting away from the island. Hopefully they don't fly too close to the sun, you know, and get burned. But so far, they are doing a pretty good job, in my opinion. I think the Hawks are looking much better, and they definitely are on contention for that fourth spot. And I will say, to answer my own question that I think I asked at the start, I do think CGA are actually looking better than against that V3 game. You know, I think the V3 game was a bit of a blip. I think CGA today looked much stronger, and they are actually in contention against the Hawks again, and they're going to play 2 more times. I think that there's potential for the other way around of the winners. So, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty happy with this performance so far today to kick it off in Game 1. We are going to be taking a short break, and then we'll be coming back for Game 2.